Okay, awesome. Well, welcome to the fourth of Silicon Society's Fireside Chats. As most people know, Silicon Society was created to build and upskill for a new era in technology. We have our agency where we build cutting edge products and data solutions for clients, and our society where technologists level up in their careers. Fireside Chats are meant to be a place where anyone can come and learn from innovators and outside the box thinkers in tech. And so for today, I am so thrilled to have Weilin Wang with us. Weilin is the founder of Care Registries, which leverages technology to solve real human issues, with its initial products supporting both individuals nearing end of life and their caregivers. When Weilin and I first connected about her vision for this product, I was absolutely blown away. And so I'm so appreciative that you're here today to tell us more about how you're using technology in this innovative way. So welcome, Weilin.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm so excited to connect with, folks who are interested in this topic and especially how we leverage technology to solve some of the old and new social problems. And so I'm excited and thrilled.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for being here. So let's kick us off. Tell us a bit about you, a quick intro, and then we'll get more into the product and technology behind it.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm Weilin Wang, as Rachel mentioned. So really, working on conscious death and dying isn't really my first job, but it's always been a passion of mine. On the careregistries.com, you'll see a quick bio of my history, why I have become so interested in this topic. Growing up, I've always thought everybody thought about death and dying the same way I did, which is, oh, it's just part of life. You live and you die, and we accept them. But until I, became an adult, I realized that is not at all how everybody thinks about it. So it's been very intriguing. So it's been a passion of mine. Although I haven't been able to focus on this until the last few years. And before that, I was kind of following a more traditional route in terms of career, going to school, grad school, and being in marketing analytics for a lot of years. So left brain, right brain, they kind of somehow, work together. Anyway, it's just a quick view of who I am, but I'm hoping to really dedicate more of my time in the future into this, conscious death and dying space.
Awesome. Okay, so from marketing analytics to building in the conscious death and dying space. So tell us what inspired you to start Care Registries.
I think it really comes from two major observations I kind of alluded to just a few minutes ago, is that, as a very modern society, we pretty much talk about everything and anything, any kind of medium, be it social media, be it in person, phone, email, whatever. We talk about everything, but we don't talk about death and dying. And we all know it's coming for all of us. Nobody can run away from it. And so there is that gap. And I think because we don't talk about it, there's just such intense fear when it comes for, people. Either we expect it or we don't expect it. We don't plan for it. So it's always a very mysterious and unknown process. And so it just causes so much stress and emotional upheaval for our families. And so, so I saw that, and as I mentioned, I don't feel that way towards death. And one day I thought to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if everybody felt the way I felt about death? So that was kind of the original inspiration. But I didn't know how to get started until a few years ago, as COVID really hit us hard. And I started researching this topic, and I came across New York Open Center. They offered the thanatology program, which is about death and dying. So I start taking it, learned a bunch. And then I start thinking, wow, there's some really practical tools I bet, families can use. So, then the rest was history. I start building bit by bit, and, then we're here today.
Amazing. So proactive in this space, especially during a time of such uncertainty.
Right.
So tell us a bit about how the platform supports individuals facing end of life.
Yeah. So we really, kind of coming from the two observation. One was you know, the lack of planning aspect of things. And then the other one is actually, when we think about death and dying, we automatically think about the dying person, but we often forget the role of a caregiver, because they're so foundational and they're such a strong pillar to making the end of life experience actually work. So our site really is built to support both roles. We want to support the dying person. We also want to support the caregivers. So when it comes to supporting the dying person, as mentioned before, it's a lot of very potent, emotional distress, right? We want to be able to really bring forth the kind of wealth of knowledge that, we have gathered to say, okay, when it comes to that, because we don't talk about it, we don't ever plan for it. And when it comes, there's just so little knowledge around end of life. And yes, you can search and you can Google, and there's a million websites talk about a million things. But there's really a lack of a central spot where it's almost like end of life 101. You go there, you kind of learn about all the, variety of topics, and then you figure out what's most relevant for my situation. And then I can go deeper into planning for my end of life experience. So that's the one side, in terms of serving the dying person. And on the other side, in terms of the caregivers, they often really, in the whole equation, they almost seem invisible, right? They're doing all the hard work. They often shoulder the responsibilities all by themselves, yet a lot of the focus is only on the dying person and not the caregivers. And their life is completely turned upside down, right? They don't have time to make meals. They don't, if they have young children, they don't, like, how are you going to make the pickup and drop off schedule work, right? As, working moms, we understand that just only too well. And so we thought, okay, well, let's set up the platform also to allow the caregivers to specify what they need help with. We even start them off with a menu, so they don't, to try to take the thinking element out of it as much as we can, so they can, choose from the menu the help that they need. And they also specify when they need it. Is it a weekly occurrence? Is it like a one-time thing? And then they send it out to their trusted family, friends, and neighbors even. So then, if I'm a neighbor, I wanted to help previously, I didn't know how to or when to. Now I know, oh, next Tuesday they need house cleaned. I can be there and I can do that. So we want to, give really practical help to caregivers. So those are the two fronts our site aims to do.
Awesome. And I just have to say, like, I feel so inspired hearing you talk because, part of what I get to do all the time is talk to all different founders. But, I think women founders, mom founders, founders who've lived, robust life experience and can really see the different sides of who needs help and then be a tech entrepreneur in the space is really cool to hear about. I get inspired by that. So
Oh, thank
um, I appreciate you sharing the space that you're solving. But let's dig into the tech side a little bit
you.
here.
Yeah.
How does technology encourage discussions around death and dying? I guess in general, and then specifically for care registries.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think maybe this is not the latest frontier of leveraging technology, but certainly, having the social media platforms has brought us closer, right? Previously, if we want to, and also internet in general, I know that's not new tech, but it is, something that made the sharing of knowledge possible, right? So I think that's, like I said, it's not frontier of technology, but without it, a lot of the things that Care Registry wants to do wouldn't exist today. Um, so I think as a society, right, we pride ourselves being a very technologically advanced society and country, and we use a lot of our technologies extend our lives, but we don't really use it to better plan for a better end of life experience when it's nobody can avoid that chapter of life, right? And so so that's, it almost feels like a miss. Why aren't we using the technology for this purpose as well? And as I start building out the site and then talking to people and doing research, I think in general there is more and more there are more sites and technology being leveraged to support end of life. It is still not nearly to the degree or level needed to support the true needs of all the families that go through death and dying today. But at least it's very encouraging to see that there are sites that start to do that. And sometimes, and maybe it's a little dark in terms of this humor, but we start to kind of piece together this user journey, right, when it comes to end of life, as you approach it, as you live through it, and post death, all the support they're starting to pop up, to support. Um, In terms of, care registries, I mean, we leveraged so kind of going down a little bit more detailed, we used Figma to kind of help design, right? Like what the experience should look like. And even before that, we used Miro board to kind of really map out, me and my team, we try to map out, okay, so if I were a caregiver, what would be my experience? And if I'm a neighbor trying to support a caregiver, what does that look like? And if I were the dying person or a family for a dying person, let's map it out on Miro board. And we use Figma to kind of design what screen by screen should look like, right? And then, really build that kind of interactive experience. And then we use WordPress to easily port over some of the Figma files and, to kind of build into the site. And soon we're going to start building an app focusing on the care coordination functionality specifically. And so all of those things are leveraging some of the existing technology to kind of make it happen. And one more thing I'll say is that we're not done building. This is kind of like the MVP of what we're trying to do. We do hope to leverage AI to essentially building some kind of like concierge service. As you go through end of life, maybe you don't want to answer a million questions to get to what you need. All you want to do, and almost therapeutic process, is let me just type out 300 words of what I'm experiencing, and then the AI can then process it to understand what you're going through, and then recommend the kind of topics that's most relevant to you, what kind of planning might be most relevant, and what kind of services that you could start exploring. So that's coming down the pike for us as well.
I love that. And whenever I think about AI agents and a way to not have to have someone tell their story over and over again, right? People talk about that with customer service, that you can
Yeah.
actually get better customer service sometimes with an agent because you could just kind of like upload your personal information and they can get you what you need. And I think a dying person being able to kind of just upload that information and not have to tell their story over and over is an incredible and powerful use case of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Tell us a bit about what's happening on the back end technically to make the registry work and also some of the
Mhm.
other, tools that maybe are built or will be built.
Yeah. So, in terms of the site, we primarily use WordPress at the moment. I know there are, some of the better, probably more featured content management systems out there. And in fact, I used to work for one. um, but it's easy to get started. And for me, this is like it started as a personal passion project, and so it started simple. We used WordPress as the starting point to help us, essentially stand up the technological foundation. We use the built-in database within WordPress, and also the messaging capability that it has. And it does have a lot of plugins to a lot of the things that we might need immediately. Sounds like I'm doing a commercial for WordPress, but um,
If it
but
works, that's great.
yep, it works. In the future, we probably would potentially migrate to some of the more sophisticated platforms, to maybe, you know, uh, I don't know, some of the other platforms. I don't want to say anything yet. Uh, there's definitely a plan to kind of continuously build out the tech platform. So, does that
Awesome.
answer your question, or
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely. And then around the care registry form specifically, how did you design that form? Both like I know you mentioned the Figma, but also kind of like the content of that form.
The menu, you mean like to pick and
The
choose?
menu.
Okay. Yeah. So those are all scripting, the kind of native scripting language that WordPress allows. Yeah. So, the platform is very, very open, I guess, to various plugins. So my dev team has, you know, incorporated a lot of the programming plugins in order to, custom code the form, the menu, and the flow and the process and all of that.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. I think, there's a few questions here from our community, which I'm going to ask you in a moment. But certainly, I think there's this getting started kind of paralysis that some people who have ideas have. And so the idea of just finding a platform that's good enough for your initial features and getting it out there is a very real experience, and honestly has allowed you to build something pretty cool to start. So I love hearing about that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, before I jump into the questions that were submitted by our network, in a few sentences, what is your ultimate vision for Care Registries?
Um, the ultimate vision for Care Registries. So, I really kind of tying back to what we were saying earlier, right? We use technology for everything and anything. I really would love to see the same level of investment and commitment technologically to be put into end of life experiences, both to help with the dying person as well as to support the caregivers in general, just helping the families navigating, this. And I think if we can use the technology to help take care of a lot of the very distracting logistics of this whole end of life experience, then really that frees the families up to spend quality time together, which arguably wasn't a whole lot left, right? So
Mhm.
instead of being focused on meals or writing a living will or whatever it is, hope one day soon that technology will help automate a lot of those things away. So really give them time and space to have that really, quality connection in the last moments of their life. That's really the true vision, is make that part of our regular life and use technology to make that possible.
Wow. So powerful. And I think there's this, when we use technology and you look at so many tech companies, they're like KPIs and their goals are very, specific to like on-app usage and things like that, which will be important, obviously, for the success of something like this too. But the ultimate goal being um, quality of life in someone's last, months, weeks, years of life is very powerful. Probably not as measurable, although actually probably pretty measurable too, in a really interesting way. So
Yeah.
that's pretty incredible. Okay, so we did open up a Q&A to our community, to our network. Folks were really excited that we were chatting with you. And we did have a couple of questions submitted.
Great.
So one question is, what advice would you have for people with ideas looking to found a tech company, or specifically looking to found a tech company in a non-traditional space?
Um, I think, I'm debating where do I start. I think there's a few, competing entry points or considerations, I would say. The first one is, I think, at least speaking from my personal experience, I would think it's really about answering the question, what does this idea help solve, right? And I know people have different motivations, and some are motivated by being successful financially and other regards. And, I think for others, it's about this is a passion. I see a big problem. I really want to solve it. At some point, hopefully that leads to financial success. I certainly hope so too. But the starting point is what kind of societal issue that this idea is helping to address. So I think that as a starting point, and then really be immersed into that subject and understand um, just as many details as we can surrounding this issue. What does it mean? How do we solve it? What kind, put ourselves in the shoes of those people in need of this service or product to really understand their pain points. And I know what I'm saying is not rocket science. It's really just coming from my own perspective. And then I think then once we understand that, I think, look at the technology that's available today. It's amazing. It's almost like everything you want to build, you want to create, there is some kind of technology solution out there, or we can, bring together the components and make the solution needed to build our vision. So I think I would say you start with the problem statement and then really find meaning and commitment to it, and then find the resources needed to make it a reality, and then really test. If whatever it is that we build are they need to be useful, they need to be usable, and then from there, I think if you build something that's absolutely needed by the society society, by the people, it'll find its way to where it needs to go.
Absolutely. I love that. And I also appreciate you touching on it being okay to want to make money off of mission-driven companies. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of, no one ever questions if a doctor should charge for their services, but I talk to a lot of social entrepreneurs who really struggle with like for-profit versus nonprofit. And I think when you're building certainly a tech-enabled solution and you're solving a real problem for people, it's okay to be like, this is going to have a huge impact in society. And if it works, it can also make me money. And both of those things are excellent.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to say one more thing is, it's my also my intent to make my company for profit and non-for-profit. And I think a lot of people assume it would be non-for-profit. And the reason for that is, I feel like we don't talk about death and dying enough in the society. And if the company, when the company has the financial resources to do so, I would love to have some kind of social awareness campaign surrounding conscious death and dying, and to really normalize the conversation so that it's not taboo, so people can start talking about it early versus waiting till it happens to them. So all of that, it doesn't, I mean, the movement started back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and we've made a lot of big strides, but it's not nearly fast enough as the society needs it to be, and that takes investment. And where does that come from? So
Yeah,
so I think make it a for-profit venture will help fuel that kind of need. So anyway,
100%.
yeah,
Yes, agree. I feel like I've also chatted with a lot of like nonprofit veterans who end up launching a for-profit because they just want to build something and have
yeah,
traction and not worried about like getting funders and donations. So
right,
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
So you sort of answered this already, but someone asked it, so I'll put it out there. What
yeah.
made you want to build specifically for this end of life moment? And I guess I'll even broaden that. How do you think you had you mentioned a couple times you had such a different kind of notion about death than maybe we do it in, let's say, like society right now. Can you share a bit more about that and how it made you want to build for this moment?
How I want to build for this moment. Yeah, I think it's kind of a journey that started as a seed, and it just kind of continues to build. As I mentioned at the beginning, right? The seed was the sudden realization that most people don't see death and dying the way I did, and I just thought, well, maybe I was the weird one, and so I just kind of kept it to myself. Then I start seeing all the suffering surrounding death and dying, and I started thinking, well, am I missing something? Or, like, why is there such a huge discrepancy? And I think it was back in 2016 or so. Kind of in a way, and this is where I'm getting a little bit more right-brained than left-brained. It started my spiritual journey. That's when I started to kind of, start to see life and society and the life events very differently. And it's not I mean, it's a gradual process, and as I grow spiritually, I start to view this weird view of death and dying to be an asset and not really something weird about myself. And I start to realize how much pain and suffering surrounding it. And I really was inspired, and I feel very compelled to want to do something to change that, right? And it's not a treasure just for myself. It should be shared with everybody. I just didn't know how to. And so, one thing after the other, COVID happened, and that need felt even stronger and more urgent. And I started to, explore, and found the resources that I had, classes, online reading, things of that nature. And I thought, and I'm open to that kind of research. And even then, I'm overwhelmed. Imagine families who haven't spent much time thinking or doing research on this. So, and interestingly, actually, this idea came from the capstone project for the thanatology program that I took with Open Center. And at the end, every student needs to come up with an idea how they want to, continue learning or spreading the knowledge. And that was my capstone project. And And during my presentation, the instructor and also the classmates, they just kept sending me messages off on the side and said, please don't stop, please build it, make it a reality. And I just felt like if it was so strongly felt, even by my classmates, I can only see how strong the need it is outside of this little bubble. So it took a long time, just because, it's a side passion of mine. Bit by bit, it kind of, make us to come here is really about it's about sharing the knowledge at the right time, for the families, and then just really use the technology to kind of take away the logistics of things and really help people focus on the emotional well-being and the quality time together.
I love that. We need more founders that are right-brained and left-brained motivated. So I think that's so critical. And that early validation from your classmates is incredible, and that you kept on with it.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, it was funny. I went not that long ago. So after my site launched on September 17th, I went back to the program, and they had an alum function. So I was able to present my website back to them. And interestingly, I mean, there were alums from many different years, and then there were a few from my cohort. They showed up, and they're like, "Weili, we remember you, and we remember this idea. I'm so glad that you stuck with it. Yes, it took 3 years.
Yes,
It's here now." So it was so encouraging to kind of see like the full circle being completed.
totally. Totally. I love that. All right. So how can people follow along on your journey? Any socials that you want to plug? Where can folks follow you, and also just get information in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely come visit us at www.careregistries.com. It's the plural, not the singular. And I also have Care Registries social profile on LinkedIn and also Facebook that I maintain very regularly. And very soon we are going to set up our account on medium.com as well. So I will be publishing articles and blogs on there as well. And we'll add the social handle to the website as soon as they as soon as they go live.
Amazing. Awesome. And I will include them all in the comments for this video as well. Weilin, thank you so much for sharing your journey, sharing your story, and how you've used technology in this totally different way for this human moment. We'll be cheering you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.